Hello everybody and welcome to another Boxtail Scoop. Yeah, don't know what week it is, no idea. And as seems to be the theme of this year, we have yet again had to do a kind of U-turn because it seems now, it's not definite, but it seems highly unlikely that we will be doing Hansel and Gretel this year. It seems more likely that that will be postponed to the following year or something. So we decided that it was only sensible therefore to kind of press pause on the making of that for the time being and move on to the other Christmas show, which as yet we don't know what's going to happen with it. So we have to forge ahead and try and make a start on things.
It still could possibly go ahead, so we have to be ready for it to go ahead.
Just in case. So we have started on that this week and we made quite a nice start actually on it. We had, so the second Christmas show we're doing, we mentioned it ages ago but everybody's probably forgotten, we almost had, is A Christmas Carol. So it's Charles Dickens. We've never attempted a Dickens before for very good reason really. One of the reasons being, I love Dickens, absolutely love
And we have
Dickens.
definitely thought about it. It's like they've crossed our minds before.
Yeah, and the characters are wonderful and really very suitable for puppets and everything. So it's not been because we haven't thought that it would fit our style, more because there are so many characters and we hadn't really felt like we were up to the challenge or really fast enough at making as well. That was the other thing. So we made a list of the characters that are in our version of the script, our version of the story, and I think we worked out in the end that we may well have around 30 puppet characters in the show.
It's worth mentioning that the first part of that was to write a list of all the characters that were in our script, because we've written the kind of rehearsal draft of the adaptation. Yeah. We went through, made a list of all the characters, and then, as we always would, we had a discussion about which characters should be puppet and which characters should be human. And I think we may have mentioned it before on one of these videos, but we always make sure that there is some sense to it. There is a rationale, there is a reason for making that distinction between puppet and human characters. Even if it's not immediately obvious to the audience. In some shows it is more so than others.
Yeah.
But even if it's not immediately obvious, the fact that it's there and we understand it and it informs what we do, I think helps make sense of the thing as a whole.
Definitely.
Makes it feel cohesive.
It's really important because otherwise it's just random and I think it feels random to us. But we made quite an interesting decision really about that on Monday, I think it was, wasn't it? And sort of managed to reason the whole thing through and we were happy with the conclusion we came to. So we then started...
And it gave us quite a nice spread as well. It gave us a nice mixture.
Because that's the other thing you want. You don't want, you know, for 30 minutes of the show to have no puppets and then suddenly a puppet character pop up out of nowhere because it will feel like a little jar, I think, with the audience. So yeah, so it's good. So we then decided that it's quite, I'm personally finding it quite difficult to focus at the moment, not least because it seems like we start on things and then we have to stop and move on to something else, which does start to get quite difficult. And
exhausting.
Yeah, so because of that we thought rather than spend huge amounts of time discussing things or drawing, which I find I need more focus for, we just decided to put an audiobook on and let our hands start to make some puppet heads, and this is what we've come up with, which we're actually really pleased with. It's been quite a nice week.
No, it's been lovely. I think the progress is great and the sort of the range of characters and sort of shapes that you've got here is brilliant.
So, I mean, if you've read any Dickens, you'll know that the characters are quite caricatured, especially the incidental characters. They have very larger-than-life personalities, a lot of them. So we decided to go with that, with some of the puppets. So any puppet that's incidental, relatively speaking, or has a particularly strong personality or characteristics, we're going to go quite caricatured with the faces. So we've got a couple, or 3 of them here, I think, that are more caricatured than the other 2.
Yeah.
So I guess, should we just pick up a couple in a show?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter what order we do it in, because although
they're in varying degrees of readiness as well, obviously. None of them are finished, obviously, far from it.
all of the eyes are temporary.
Yeah, we'll just pop someone to help.
Kind of, you get a sense of the face.
Yeah.
So this fella here, I've gone for. I just had in my mind I had a sort of a long, thin face, slightly drawn, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with the way that's turned out so far. I like the proportions of it. I like the sort of the drawn sense of his bottom jaw there. So.
I love it. I think he's great. He's got a lovely nose shape. we've gone for these kind of strong features with
I
some
can
of them.
imagine a little bit of hair and a top hat maybe.
Yeah, so that's one.
And
then we'll do a lady. So I made this slightly older lady, I suppose. With I wanted to give her these kind of rosy cheeks to give her a slight sort of smile to her face. Slightly jowly.
I think this was an interesting case in point of how much difference quite a little change can make. Because before you'd put those on, before you'd given her like those little sort of pink pushed up cheeks, which make her look slightly smiley.
Yes, she looked quite scary, didn't she?
Yeah, she
looked quite drawn. And also before I'd so she's gone a little bit, she's probably one stage on from the first guy we showed you. I've actually put her started to put eyelids on as well, which means that the eyes just they settle in better, don't they, to the face. So she's getting on, she's coming on really nicely. Cool. I'm really pleased with her. I'm looking forward to her hair. I love doing the hair, so I'm really looking forward to that stage. So that's her, and then should we show a child?
Sure, yeah.
So the first one I made actually was this little fella, which I think is a little boy. Maybe even might become Tiny Tim. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
at the moment
we should
we're
probably
not.
mention that we haven't. What we tried to do with these really was kind of pick a character or a sense of a character and just build around that without committing completely to going, no, this has to be this.
Yeah, exactly, because it just gives us more freedom. And also it gives us freedom to sort of say, actually, this one doesn't fit with this show, we'll save it aside for something else.
And when you've got so many to make, it means actually you're going to end up probably perhaps using them as something in there.
Exactly, so there'll be something. So he's quite sweet. I haven't put any lids on his eyes yet, so he needs something else. But he's got a nice little face. Obviously, there are a few children in the story, and we need to make sure that there is a distinction in size between the adults and the children, and I think we will slightly over-exaggerate that because it will help, I think. So he's got a smoother, less kind of, not so much with the big features. And then this dude, you made him first. How do you like him? He's brilliant.
Yeah, it's coming together all right. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's a different shape. I'm considering whether to put some sort of sags of skin on
which
it.
I think would be really nice.
Much like you did for the puppet of the Struldbrug that we made for Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah.
So I might put some loops of paper on here and then cover them over to give him a kind of,
you had a very particular character in mind for that one actually when you started.
Yeah,
which
whether
I think
it'll be that character.
I don't know, I like him, I think he might be that. But we won't reveal that until we've decided for sure. But I think he's lovely. There is one, it's funny, you realise that there are certain things that you have to do in order to make sure that things sit right. So because we put in the eyes on far too early, it was actually quite difficult with this puppet because Noel hasn't had a chance yet to build out the middle of the eye. So actually they don't sit well because the eye, the middle of the eyes, they're tilted backwards. So it would mean he would be looking there and there if you put his eyes on like that. So I've had to use extra white tack to stick them in. But and then finally I made this little one yesterday. I think this is a girl. Again, I was giving her a little nose, a slightly more heart-shaped face. But yeah, she's quite sweet. She's very, very early stages. She's only had one covering, so it needs to be built back a bit.
Slight sort of sense of a smile.
Yeah.
A gentle smile. And was this the one that was made slightly differently?
Yeah, so this one, because I realised that it was getting a real pain to try and cover it's really messy at the back, you can see how we start, but these loops where you put your fingers and your thumb in to operate the mouth, they're a real nightmare to cover once you've already built the puppet out because you have to get your fingers inside to try and it's where I wish I could sort of shrink down to do it. So for this one I made that piece first and covered it first and then built the puppet up over and around it.
Right.
But I don't know whether it was worth it or not, maybe. But yes, so it meant that the only trouble with that has been, in fact, I don't think I've built her round back enough. I think I'm going to have to do another layer, but that's easy enough. I can just add a bit to her.
It does give a slightly different effect though, and then I thought it's this one.
It's that one. No, that one was made a different way. He was the first thing I made, and I did I made him before we cut the mouth out. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So with these ones, we've made the mouth mechanism first, and then built the frame of the head around that. Whereas with this one, you sculpted the face first,
Yes.
and then we cut the bottom, the mouth out, and put a little mouth mechanism in, and it does give a slightly different effect because it means that you get, I don't know whether
But it's rounded it out at the sides a little bit more, and I don't know maybe whether that was just easier because it was cut out of it. I don't know.
I think so.
I wasn't sure whether because
But it's interesting. It's nice
yeah.
to have a mixture of that, because it gives it a more rounded.
Yes,
look
so
at the
it
front
might
and
mean
the
that for
chin.
the children, maybe we do go for that one, that way of making.
It's been quite productive anyway, and we're quite pleased, like I said, with the range of characters.
When we start to look at them all together, you kind of start to feel like you get a feel for what the show might look like, which gets exciting. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed that we might actually get to finish these ones this year.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah,
obviously, things that we have put aside for now, we're going to be going back to them next year.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's about it for this week. In other news, I guess one of us has had a haircut. You can guess which one answers on a postcard. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.